On this episode of America's Port, a cascade of crane failures could leave a ship stranded at dock.
10-4, crane 6 is down for the count.
Well, that's pretty much the worst news you can hear.
When the cranes stop, the revenue stops.
A $20 million engine is useless unless engineers can fix a 4-ton piston. A roboboat capable of firing a machine gun or launching a grenade could end up in the port's arsenal of anti-terrorist weapons. The Port of Los Angeles, the busiest container port in the United States. Combined with the Port of Long Beach, they handle more than 40% of the nation's containerized imports. Freighters arrive around the clock with hundreds of millions of dollars of products, constantly feeding America's economic machine. Under a blanket of pre-dawn darkness, a cargo ship nearly 3 football fields long approaches the Port of Los Angeles. The mighty APL Scotland arrives after a 15-day journey from Singapore. She's loaded with everything from furniture to apparel to electronics. A port pilot and tugboat head out to meet the gliding giant. This morning, it's Chief Port Pilot Michael RUBINO. This is no 9-to-5 gig.
Well, that's the nature of this job. Pilots are on call 24/7 in all kinds of weather. You could be going out at midnight or any time in the early morning. And really the early morning time right now, 0500 is our peak hours, so the ship can get in time to work the gangs at 8 o'clock.
As RUBINO boards the moving vessel, a tugboat arrives to help bring the Scotland to dock. Moments ago, tugboat Captain Mike Wilson reported for his morning shift.
I woke up, I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and grabbed a cup of coffee and headed up here.
His commute, 1 flight of stairs.
About a good 25 steps, and I'm at work. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, so it's routine. Wake up pretty fast. I guess it's all the years in the business that you get used to getting up and being sharp right away, or try to be.
The tugboat crew works 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. And they live right on the boat, rotating in 6-hour shifts.
We do our 2 week ship assist, and then the 2 weeks off I fly home back in Missouri and spend 2 weeks with my wife and dogs and just kind of chill out and regroup. So when 2 weeks is up at home, I'm ready to come back to work.
When they're not on duty, Captain Wilson and his crew live, eat, and sleep below deck.
We used to have cooks on board, but now we have to cook for ourselves, which fortunately we have a couple of good cooks on here, so nobody's losing any weight.
Back on the bridge of the Scotland, RUBINO prepares to command the ship all the way to the final destination, the APL terminal.
Anchor's ready, engines all
tested, yeah, we tested
Okay.
this morning again.
And bow thruster is ready.
Yes.
So right now we're aboard the APL Scotland. We're following one ship inbound and approaching our number 3 buoy. And in just a second, I'll be calling the tug to head out this way, and we'll put her up on the stern. APL Scotland to the tug.
APL Scotland, good morning. You got the tug leader.
Leader, good morning. We're just coming up on number 3, following the Jin inbound. We get in a little closer, Cap. You come out this way, we'll put you up center lead aft.
All right, head out that way and get a line up center lead aft. You got it.
We have one tug will be coming out, Captain. We'll put him center lead aft.
The tug connects a 9-inch thick working line to the Scotland.
Captain RUBINO.
Leader 45 aft, pushing full.
45 aft, pushing full, right?
The 105-foot tug tows, turns, pushes, and pulls the nearly 1,000-foot Scotland to its berth. At As the Scotland makes its final turn to the APL terminal, Supervisor Dan Hanrahan heads to the water's edge to assist Rubino with final docking.
Go back there, come on over to the starboard quarter, hang one up.
Roger, starboard quarter. We're gonna shift to the starboard quarter, get this guy ready to go, so we'll be set up to push and pull.
Cannonball, push easy, Morgan, push easy.
And here she comes. God, she's beautiful. This is the best part of my day because right now it's calm. Right now I'm just here being that it's 5:40 in the morning just for the pilot support. Where else in the world do you get to see stuff like this? You gotta love this. You just gotta love it.
With the tug repositioned,
Okay, leader, easy push 90.
it's time to park.
Say we've got about another 60 feet to go. Dead slow astern. So we're creeping. We're gonna get all the headway off the dock, or off the ship right now, and land it right on our bridge mark.
Basically, I want him to line up with the bridge sign, so once the pilot gets a little bit closer, I'll start guiding him in as far as where I want him to park her. Just based on room to work, you know, I don't want him up so close. You know, he'll come into this, he'll target this bridge sign right here. This is where I'm telling the pilot to park the vessel, to berth the vessel. If I need him to move anywhere, the pilot will do so. I'll give him a series of hand signals so we can communicate with each other. Once he hits the target that I'm looking for, I'll give him an X sign, meaning that's where I want the vessel, bring her on in, and he'll communicate back to me that he understands that, and that's the way that works.
Hanrahan must align the Scotland exactly on the dock, so valuable time isn't lost repositioning the 6 cranes assigned to unload the 3,000 containers.
Leader, easy pull, man. Just about on the mark. He's motioning for us to go ahead, maybe about another meter or two. Sometimes we get down to half meters that, I don't know, they think we're parking sports cars or something, not 900-foot ships. But yeah, we're just about there.
Rubino eases the ship forward. It's only a matter of inches.
Stop engine, stop.
Hanrahan still isn't satisfied. He needs 6 cranes working the Scotland just to keep her on schedule.
Just pointing. Just point like this. I don't know how far. And leader, easy now. Easy. Give it a slight angle aft. We're in position.
Finally, Rubino hits the mark.
We are here now. In position. I'll stop.
With the Scotland in place, the tugs release their lines above deck.
Lines aborted, leader.
Okay, leader. That's it for you, Captain. Nice job. Appreciate the help.
You have a good morning, Captain.
Okay, thank you.
While below, the next shift prepares to take over.
Is George up? Get him up. It's another one done. We'll wait around for the next one.
This went fine. Everything was smooth. Communication was good. Conditions were all fine, so no problems here. Another day at LA Harbor.
As the tug sets off to meet its next ship, the Scotland crew drops rope to the linesman who will secure the massive Scotland to the dock. Once lines are secure, rodent blocks are put in place.
One of the last duties of the mates upon tying up is attaching the rack guards, preventing any lovely creatures from boarding the vessel.
The Scotland has arrived. Longshoremen report for the morning shift. Lashers board the ship to unlock the nearly 3,000 containers. Each one can weigh several tons.
There's a lot of stuff to get hit by a bar or turnbuckles and get hurt.
Aluminum poles unlock the containers from each other. It's back-breaking work.
Sometimes we gotta beat these guys.
As lashers pound out the turnbuckles in APL Central Command.
You have top handler number 1 on crane 11, and we're still looking for a top handler for crane 12.
With nearly 6,000 container moves to complete in only 60 hours, cranes and shifts must be mapped out precisely to get the Scotland sailing by Saturday. Supervisor Rob Pettit has it all planned out.
The 5,800 moves that we've forecasted to do on this vessel, this is how the operation in the pre-planning phase of it is going to go. And it starts with, here's the first shift, the second shift, the hoot shift, then you have the day side, the night side, the hoot, and the finishing shift.
Shifts are scheduled around the clock so the Scotland can set sail in less than 3 days. It's Thursday and time for the first shift of the morning gang. In the APL break room, Vince Merkowitz heads out to Crane 6 to start offloading the first containers of the day.
I've been doing this, it's gonna be about 10 years now. My dad was a longshoreman. My brother pushed me to come up here because he started first. I love it. It's, I think, the best job in the world right now. First thing I do is I clean the windows so I can see what's down there.
As Merkowitz preps his crane to work the front of the Scotland, his brother climbs up another crane to offload the stern. A long line of UTRs, utility tractor rigs, fire up and head to the dock, ready to take containers from the 6 cranes. Some containers will be parked in the APL container yard to be picked up by truck, while others will be loaded directly onto a waiting on-dock train.
This is one of the largest on-dock rail operations in the Port of Los Angeles.
Millions of dollars of consumer products are transported every day from the port by miles of train and delivered throughout the country.
On a weekly basis, we load approximately 15 to 18 trains a week that range in size from anywhere from 6,000 to 7,500 feet long.
That's more than 17 miles of train. Hundreds of containers from the Scotland will be loaded onto 3 trains in less than 3 days.
The name of our game is all about velocity. How quick can we get a container in here and to its final point and out of here as fast as possible?
Back on the ship, after an hour and a half of physically demanding work, lashers tackle the last row of cans. Injuries on the dock come with the territory. And it's no surprise that the #1 body part that longshoremen injure, their backs. Lashers rank #2 in injuries, and crane operators who lean forward and look down between their feet all day are #10. John Merkowitz feels the pain of years on the dock.
Not basically working down on those waterfront, wear and tear on my back, but I had a lower disc fused, so I try to do everything I can to protect it. So I sit here and I put this on. The power to the crane, got the hydraulic pump, that gives me the flippers and everything else. I'll go get a can.
It's time to offload.
Touchdown. We'll get another one.
In Crane 6, his brother Vince heads out to offload his first containers. But something is wrong. The spreader beam isn't moving. He can't move the 24,000-pound spreader beam up or down.
Yeah, we got problems with this handle right here. We're not getting any.
It's 12 tons of dead weight hanging overhead with no way to control it.
Hey, Bill, you there?
Yeah, I'm down on the dock. How can I help you?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna need mechanics.
Marine operations, Rob. What's going on?
Well, we can't get the cranes to move, so nothing's moving, so
Okay, hold on one second.
A crane going down impacts our ability to get as much cargo as we can when we want it. We have to ramp up our operation to get caught back up.
finding the problem in a piece of machinery like this could definitely take some time.
And each passing minute cuts into the bottom line.
When the cranes stop, the revenue stops.
The Port of Los Angeles is not restricted to just ships and cargo. Every day there's a constant flow of trucks and trains, cruise ships, and commercial fishermen. The University of Southern California crew team practices among the giant freighters.
Keep that control up, Luke.
Even the local high school sailing program uses the waters around the port, with ships and cranes as a backdrop. From cargo to kids, it's a wide open port and a prime terrorism target.
This port was built when times were a lot nicer in this country and didn't have the threat of terrorism like we do now. That said, we can't put a fence around this port.
A single attack could not only result in devastating human loss, but would leave the nation's economy crippled.
This is a very vibrant and economically stimulating area as far as moving the product out and needs to be protected.
There's never been a successful attack at the Port of Los Angeles, and Executive Director Geraldine Natz has to constantly work to keep it that way.
We're obviously a area where security is really important. If something happened to shut down our operation, the world, the entire country would be impacted.
Around the clock, the port is patrolled by air, land.
These trash dumpsters, we have a major increase of them being stolen right now. We don't know if it's because of a terrorist reason, where they would pack them full of explosives and drop them off.
And sea.
It's one of the Coast Guard's answers to 9/11. Us being also a military branch, we're required to fill that role as well as the Homeland Security role. So that's why we have an armament on board. Pretty much anything that we need that boat to do as far as anti-terrorism missions, it can accomplish.
Terrorist tactics change constantly, which means security at the port must always be one step ahead.
Technology changes all the time, so we're constantly going to upgrade our technology.
Searching for new technologies to fight security threats, Dr. Natz travels to Israel, where terrorism is an everyday reality. At the port of Haifa,
Deputy General Manager.
Hi, nice to meet you, Geraldine Natz.
Dr. Natz and Ron Boyd, Chief of the Port of Los Angeles Police, meet with the designers of a new weapon to combat terrorism, the Protector. This naval combat system is remote-controlled and heavily armed, as these live-action and animated demos show. The primary purpose, stop a terrorist attack before it happens, and do it from a safe distance up to 10 miles away.
So where is the person or persons who's operating this remotely? Where are they?
Today they are up on the Mount Carmel, away from here.
Oh, okay, they're 10 miles away, wow.
This unmanned boat can patrol the port and shipping lanes to protect commercial vessels carrying millions of dollars of cargo. To protect against the USS Cole type of attack by a small vessel attempting to blow up ships or port infrastructure, the electro-optical system uses radar to identify and track a potential threat. The stabilized weapon mount on the front of the boat can launch a grenade or fire a machine gun.
So instead of use manned patrol boat, you can send the unmanned patrol boat, and this is a perfect solution for maritime security.
The security features include 24/7 video surveillance and voice communication.
A full camera day and night, so when you get closer to a boat which is suspicious, not only you can see their faces, you can talk to them, interrogate them.
With $238 billion worth of products arriving at the Port of Los Angeles on ships, is the Protector's multi-million-dollar price tag worth it?
It's around $3.5 million with all the equipment, with the weapon system, with the control station, with the communication, everything.
I think that it was important for us to take a look at the product that the folks demonstrated today.
If the Port of Los Angeles decides to buy a Protector at a cost of $3.5 million, it will be the first in the world to utilize this type of floating force protection.
The Protector was quite interesting. It's a very unique vehicle. It's got some unique capabilities, and that's something that has some durability in an industrialized port environment.
7,500 miles back at the Port of Los Angeles, workers at the APL terminal deal with the breakdown of a gigantic crane.
Well, we can't get the cranes to move, so nothing's moving.
If it's down for good, it can cost a considerable amount of money. It's supposed to get out of here at 1900 on Saturday. Things like this make it happen, so it doesn't. In a tight situation here, we have to make a decision here in a second.
At the APL terminal, Crane 6 is shut down. The spreader that moves containers from ship to shore is frozen in midair. The problem could be hidden anywhere in this $7 million maze of wire and cable.
Yeah, this joystick right here is not full throttle. I mean, it's like it's getting stuck.
Any delay could be devastating.
It's going on an hour now. The cost per gang hour is being lost. Our production time is being lost, and we have it'll affect our overall production and our ability to finish the ships.
Trucks are backed up like it's morning rush hour. Coming to the rescue, the crane repair pit crew. These are highly specialized mechanics responsible for keeping the mammoth machines running. First, mechanic Pat Barley checks the hundreds of feet of wiring that power the crane. If one of the cables that connects the spreader to the crane is damaged, it could snap and send the 12-ton beam plummeting to the dock below. Crane operator John Merkowitz has seen firsthand how a crane accident can be deadly.
Poor guy, boom, up above him, broke, and split him in half as the boom fell on top of him. Cut him in half. So I've seen all kinds of stuff down here.
Merkowitz's brother Vince isn't seeing much action now. He's in a holding pattern as crane mechanics try to diagnose the malfunction.
It's kind of like having a needle in a haystack. You got an electrical problem somewhere in this festoon, you don't know where it's at.
Finding the problem in a piece of machinery like this could definitely take some time.
But with each passing minute, productivity falls farther behind. A decision has to be made. Wait for the repair that may never come, or take the time to move this crane out of the rotation.
Hey, Rob, copy.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, let's slide 6 out of the way.
10-4, crane 6 is down for the count. 10.
Well, that's pretty much the worst news you can hear.
Crane 6 is dead. With nearly 3,000 cans to move off and on the Scotland, 3 trains to load, and less than 3 days to do it, supervisors have to find a way to make up the time or the ship will sail late. But there's a bigger problem brewing, a $4 million one that could keep the Scotland from going anywhere. As the APL team scrambles to get production back up to 100%, there's another problem, not on the dock, but deep in the bowels of the ship itself, the Scotland engine room. One of the 12 pistons that operate the ship's engine is damaged. The piston is attached to the crankshaft. As the pistons move up and down, they rotate a crankshaft which spins the ship's propellers. Engineers have found a slight oil leak, and a small leak is a big deal with an engine this size. The ship needs all 12 cylinders fully operational, or the Scotland can't even fire up its engine.
The ship has to run with the 12 cylinders. We cannot cut out any cylinders.
First, Scotland engineers must remove the 8,000-pound cylinder head that covers the piston. Then they lift out the 4-ton, $4 million piston. The piston is slowly pushed up out of the shaft. A special crane attaches to the top, and the giant part is transferred to an area where it can be examined. Engineers check the 4-ton cylinder head for any cracks. While one team examines the piston, another engineer grinds the inside of the cylinder to keep it smooth and the seal around the piston airtight. If the $20 million engine isn't up and running by Saturday's departure time, it could cost not only tens of thousands of dollars in lost revenue, but another $4 million if the piston has to be replaced altogether.
We cannot delay it because the huge money is involved behind it, and we have to satisfy our customer to take the cargo from this side of the world to the other side of the world.
Back on the dock, the first shift working on the Scotland is behind schedule.
We're still on hold.
Hanging dead overhead on crane number 6 is a 12-ton claw called a spreader. When working properly, it picks up containers and moves them from ship to shore. But not on crane 6. Its spreader is stuck and out of commission.
I can see the mechanics still in driver's seat.
The problem could be in the sea of coiled cable.
I think our festoon check here is pretty much done. Everything looks good. No problems that we could see.
Next step, mine the maze of wires and circuits in the crane's control panel.
It's slow both ways, Pat. I think the encoder itself is bad.
Master switch. They get worn and then they just don't have enough throw, so you can't get full stick up and down. Just something that wears, you know?
Well, when the crane's broke, we can do nothing but sit and wait.
We bypassed it for now, but we're gonna test it.
All right, buddy. Crane number 6 is down for the count. What we're gonna have to do is bring in, we're gonna take the operator out of 6 and put him up into 1 and slide all the cranes down. And we're gonna do that now.
Every crane will have to be moved and 100 longshoremen will be reassigned, stopping production completely.
So there's a lot of communication that has to go on across the dock while we're doing this, you know, with the planners, the supercargo, our ops center, our foremen that are on the ship, all the labor.
As mechanics work on the problem, supervisors on the ground scramble for a new plan. They've got to replace crane 6.
To the wheels on 42 and then come back to the wheels on 38.
Okay. Okay.
And
So
Billy already knows that.
he knows that,
Yeah.
and then Ivan.
Ivan doesn't know that. We need to tell Ivan.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? You know
Yeah.
what we're trying to do?
John got a copy.
They undertake the enormous task of shutting down every crane, moving the bad one out and a new one in, and reassigning all longshoremen to new positions.
When you
go to scrambled cranes, of course, you know, you have to redo all the paperwork with all the cranes, get everybody shuffled down. So in an event where, like, let's say crane 6 were to not come back in service, to get crane 1 in, it's going to cost us a little bit of time getting everybody, you know, new paperwork and everything. So yeah, there's a huge cost with everything that we do.
We're just moving the crane operator from 6 to 1.
Back up in the cabin of 6, mechanics find the malfunction.
It's slow both ways, Pat. I think the encoder itself is bad.
The encoder tells the crane what speed the spreader arm should travel. They have one sent up immediately.
Can you send encoder up the elevator in crane 6? Change out the master switch encoder.
That's the culprit right here? That's it. It's the encoder. Tells them what position the stick's in.
A small piece is causing major problems for APL.
This is Jay. I'll be your doctor off.
Okay.
No, okay. He's on his way right now.
The mechanics install a new encoder. Vince checks to see if he can hoist the spreader beam.
No, it's okay now.
One problem solved, but they discover another. A faulty joystick that will have to be replaced.
About a $6,000 joystick.
If the repair works, they're heroes. If not, it's going to be a long day on the dock. Down below, just as they begin the arduous task of scrambling the cranes, Pettit's walkie crackles to life with good news.
We got crane 6 going here, so if you guys want to stick with this one.
Cancel that. Crane 6 just came back up. Crane 6 just came back up, so they tell us it's down for the count, and then all of a sudden they put the correct wires together, it's back up.
Working okay right now.
It's been a rough morning on the APL dock.
Right now I'm very grateful the cranes are back in action.
That pretty much kicked our...
And here's the real saviors of the bunch coming out of the crane.
Pat Barley and his crew came through, but now the Scotland is way behind schedule. It's going to be a race against the clock. And on the ship, there's a busted $20 million engine that could keep the Scotland from going anywhere anytime soon. But a bad day 1 is about to turn into an even worse day 2. Another crane failure. At the APL dock, just about everything that could go wrong on day 1 did.
10-4, crane 6 is down for the count.
A costly crane breakdown. A leaking $4 million piston in the Scotland engine room. And now, on day 2, Mother Nature causes another work slowdown.
We work no matter what weather condition we're up against. So right now we're midway through the APL Scotland. We had some crane down yesterday, but that's part of the business. You know, it happens. Crane number 6 went down on us yesterday, but it looks to be in operational today. We're on target.
That target takes another hit as crane number 3 goes down.
Mike, copy? Yeah, I need a mechanic here. I lost my lock lights.
Lock lights go on when it's safe to lift a container.
Well, we have the container sits in the 4 corner castings of the beam sits in the 4 corner castings of the container. And if I don't get a complete set of lights, I can't lock the beam onto it to hoist the container up.
No lights, no lifts, means no work is getting done on crane 3. It's another job for APL mechanics.
Go ahead and show up control power, please.
10-4, controls off.
Mechanics take ground control of the 12-ton spreader beam.
To turn off the power, the mechanics can take over the power of the crane from on the ground there. and they'll be able to hoist and lower whatever they need to do.
APL can't afford another crane failure.
Yeah, that clock is going. Let me tell you, by the time she comes in Thursday 0500, that clock's going up until Saturday 1900 when she departs.
And Tardio has yet to move one container on his shift. Crane mechanic Pat Barley and his crew examine the spreader. Any delay puts production farther behind schedule. Other cranes work as fast as they can. Tardio can only sit and wait. Same for the trains.
Right now this train is probably about 80 to 85% complete loading. You can see we're making a last effort of finishing off the last track for it, and we're still waiting for a few boxes to come off the ship to top it off. So this last hour is our crunch time to police up the last few boxes off to Scotland.
The problem? Those last few boxes are in the row where the broken crane sits idle.
Hopefully we'll be back in business here in a couple minutes.
As the minutes tick by on the 4 p.m. deadline, mechanics finally diagnose the problem.
Landed plunger lets you know if you're landed on the container or the load, and it tells you it's okay to lock onto the container. What happened, one of those landed plungers, it broke.
It's a major repair, but there's no quick fix. With production falling even further behind, mechanics have to get Crane 3 up and running as fast as possible. They have two options: fix the broken part or replace the 24,000-pound spreader.
We're gonna change out the spreader. Threads are stripped. Take too much time to actually change that part out here, so what we're gonna do is change the whole spreader out.
Barley radios for a replacement beam.
Yeah, this is Pat. We need a bomb card out under Crane 3. You guys available?
Sometimes it's easier to change the beam out than it is, to try and fix it. So it's easy to change the beam, and now we can fix the beam in our leisure then.
Roger that, Crane 3, Crane 3. Usually we'll change it out here, but under the circumstances, the rain and all that, and how busy it is to get the ship out of here, we're gonna it'll be quicker to swap it out.
The spreader is on the way, but pressure to finish on time looms large.
Basically, within the next 3 shifts, we have to do the same amount of moves that we've done in the last 4 shifts.
4 shifts down, 3 left, and they're only halfway finished.
Yeah, we have roughly right around 3,000 moves to go. We have about 24 hours to do it.
They have to find some way to get it done. People all over the country are counting on receiving their goods on time.
Bottom line is customer service, bottom line. If it takes me out here day in and day out, pulling my hair out of my head to supply our customers with their needs, that's what I do. I think of the little guys in the Midwest. I'm out here in the rain, in the sleet, whatever, freezing, cold, but there's warehouses that depend on us, And what I do here feeds half the nation. So I take a lot of pride in that. I come out here with limited sleep and the fast-paced environment, as you can see, and the confusion and everything that goes around with it. I think of that factory in the Midwest every time I feel that way.
The beam is switched out and Crane 3 is back in business.
So hopefully this one should be good for the rest of the day now.
Tardio tests out his new spreader.
Normally I would have made 100 to 140 moves in a 4-hour time span, but since we did have the delays, we're looking at about 70 to 80 moves.
Tardio can finally offload the first container of his shift.
Now we're in it.
Delays have put the Scotland hours behind schedule.
You ever jump out of a plane with a parachute? Similar in feeling.
It's time to play catch-up. It's been a series of setbacks, but one thing has finally gone right. All the containers bound for Chicago are loaded on the train and ready to go. The Burlington Northern Santa Fe team makes final preparations for the journey. At 7,796 feet, the train is nearly 1.5 miles long. And it's loaded with products that will end up on store shelves throughout the Midwest.
This train that we have in front of us is destined for Chicago. The freight on this train ultimately ends on store shelves all over the United States. And when consumers go into those stores, I don't think there's a big realization in this country on how the freight actually got there.
It takes a crew of 2 to drive this train over 2,000 miles to its destination. But ultimately, it takes hundreds of people to get products from Asia to local store shelves across America.
I would imagine there's 300 or 400 or 500 people just involved in one train, you know, from getting them off the ship to train to point A to point B.
The Chicago train, full of merchandise, heads east across Southern California, through the deserts, and on to the heartland. With the train on its way, the next challenge, getting the ship to sail on schedule tomorrow. But if the piston isn't repaired, this ship won't be going anywhere. It's the third and final day working the Scotland.
There's always hiccups. I mean, we're dealing with machinery, we're dealing with weather, we're dealing with different things on the vessel.
After 2 crane failures and a rain slowdown, the APL team works feverishly to finish loading the vessel by 1900 hours.
Let me tell you, by the time she comes in Thursday 0500, that clock's going up until Saturday 1900 when she departs. Constant juggling and being on the bubble, I love it. You know, it's a rush like you wouldn't believe.
Back in the engine room, workers finish repairs on the 8,000-pound, $4 million piston. As the entire cylinder tube is smoothed to remove any unnecessary friction, workers replace worn piston rings as big as hula hoops with new ones. The rings give the piston a sliding seal against the inner edge of the cylinder to prevent oil and exhaust from leaking out. The tube is coated with lubricant. The piston is ready to go. The chief engineer monitors every step. The cylinder head is mounted and sealed. There's only one way to see if the repair was successful. Fire up the $20 million engine. After round-the-clock shifts, one lone crane finishes loading the Scotland, right on schedule. As linesmen arrive to untie the ship, tugboat captain Mike Wilson heads in to guide the Scotland out to sea.
We're on our way to Los Angeles Port, berth 302, to sail the APL Scotland. On container ships, if the booms are down and they're still loading or unloading cargo, it pretty much tells us that the ship's going to have a slight delay. Here we're approaching the APL Scotland, and looks like the cranes are up and she should be sailing on time.
As the last crane powers down, the tugs get in position. The crew of the tugboat leader put up a line to connect the Scotland.
Yeah, leader, they're gonna just get the engine and test now.
Okay, thank you. He's testing the engine right now. You can see the wash coming out.
After a rough 3 days, the APL Scotland is loaded, operating on all cylinders, and ready to sail.
Leader, pull easy.
Leader, pull easy.
Captain Wilson pulls the Scotland away from the dock. the vessel makes its final turn toward open water.
Okay, that's it. The line's back, we're done. He's off to his next ports of call, and we're off to our next job.
After 3 days of setbacks, it took an entire team of port pilot, supervisors, longshoremen, mechanics, engineers, and a tugboat named leader to get the APL Scotland finished on time. The massive container ship heads for the high seas. After a supremely challenging but ultimately successful journey to America's port.